What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to Blazers Uprise Live here on a Monday. Today, we're going to talk about a few different things. We got a few different topics to discuss. Most of them trade related. We're going to discuss a potential Jeremy Grant trade. The thumbnail might be foreshadowing. I have a gut feeling as to what a Jeremy Grant trade could look like this offseason. I'll jump into that. We'll break out the trade machine. We're also going to talk about Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's meeting with the Bucks this week. The Blazers are rumored to be a facilitator in that trade, but I also recently saw a trade idea from somewhere else that had the Blazers trading for Giannis Antetokounmpo. So we're going to look at that trade idea. We're going to talk about if the Blazers were a facilitator for Giannis, what that could look like. And we're also going to have a general discussion around those two topics about the sale and ownership. With that being a thing now, will that affect the Blazers' moves this offseason? We're going to have that conversation. We're going to take a look at the conference finals and preview those two phenomenal series we have coming up. Eric, what's going on, man? How's it going?
I'm good. How are you, Tori? How's everyone in chat lands?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I am good. Yeah, how was your weekend? What'd you do this weekend? Chat, let me know what you did this weekend in the live chat. Eric was unable to make our rec league game. He missed me getting fouled down 3 on a three-pointer, basically at the buzzer. It was brutal.
No call?
No call. No call at all. Yeah, it was brutal. We got screwed by the refs the entire game. It was very frustrating. So you missed that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
What time is our game this weekend, by the way?
2.
Or is there one because of Memorial
2.
Day? Okay.
Yeah. Should be 2. Should be this weekend.
If you need me, I'll be able to come.
Well, it's our last game of the season, so I mean, yeah.
Okay.
We needed subs last weekend, so yeah, we probably will. But yeah, chat. Hopefully, you guys are having a good Monday. Hopefully, you're having a good Monday. So, what were you up to?
Son had a soccer game same time as the game, so that's why I couldn't make it. And then they went to my mom's house, my 2 youngest kids, and then wife and I went out. We had a gym date and then went out to dinner, went home, watched some, caught up on a show we've been meaning to get caught up on, and then Sunday had a relaxed day. How about you?
What show are you catching up on?
Well, we hadn't finished the finale of Yellowstone yet.
Oh,
So
got you.
we finished that, and then I had started watching Severance, but she wanted to start it as well, so she started that.
Yeah.
And I didn't mind watching it again because there's a lot to that show. Kind of missed things, I guess.
I was hoping you were going to say the finale of The Amazing Race, because that's what I watched this weekend.
Oh, you watched that?
Yes, The Amazing Race. That's my show, man. I've watched every season. It's like, yeah, I love The Amazing Race. So maybe one day I'll be on it. Maybe one day I'll represent. Well, gotta get over the flag anxiety first, probably.
Yeah, you probably need to be on that show.
Yeah.
Forgot what show it was. I think it was like The Hunted or something, but Jordan Hutchison was on like a Australian reality show like that.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I haven't. I always meant to check out the scene that he was in. If you guys don't know Jordan, he's a regular, well, semi-regular in our chat, and he was on a Australian version of a TV show. So he's more famous than we are. So shout out to him. But y'all should audition to him for Amazing Race. I think Eric, if you ever audition for it, I think you should audition with your wife. I think we might drive each other crazy. Like, I wouldn't want to do it with anybody I work with or anybody I'm like friends with. Like, I do it with my girlfriend probably, but outside of that, because it tests you. I don't know if you've ever watched that show, but it is high stress, high stakes. You know, you got these tough tasks you got to do, and these couples just. Half of them just wither, man. Half of them are just at each other's necks, and it's like, how do you guys get through your day-to-day life? But yeah. Anyway,
Crazy, huh?
yeah. Are you mock off seasoning right now?
No, I'm good.
You got the phone out like a GM. I see you over there.
Yeah,
Anyway, if you guys have not
shamsing it.
shams again. If you guys have not been keeping up with our mock off season, you can do so by joining our Discord. It's linked in the description box below. We've had one Blazer trade. I believe just one Blazer trade. No, maybe it was two. The Blazers trade for Trae Young. That's all I'll say. You can go see the details of the 4-team trade in our Discord. You join our Discord. Make sure that you have the right threads selected. You might have to select the mock off-season threads for 2025 and go to completed trades. And you can see the 4-team trade that involved Anthony Simons to my Detroit Pistons. My Detroit Pistons.
Known Anthony Simons hater Torrey Jones trades for Anthony
Turns
Simons.
out I'm not actually an Ant hater.
In a trade that involved Scoot Henderson as well, going to another team.
Yeah.
You couldn't get Scoot to the Pistons.
I didn't even try. I just kind of like lumped myself in as the third team to the Scoot going to Atlanta and Trae Young going to Portland. And yeah, I lumped myself in because they were trying to find a spot for Anthony. And I wanted a lottery pick. And I got basically as Detroit, I traded Jaden Ivey and I think that was it. Tobias Harris and Simon Fontecchio basically saved like $16 million in cap space, so I have even more cap space. Got Anthony Simons in the 13th pick, so I basically just replaced Jaden Ivey with Anthony Simons, got rid of Tobias Harris, got the 13th pick, now have a ton of cap space. I like it. So Trae Young to the Blazers, though, I am not... I don't know. The value I don't think was bad, but I don't want Trae Young in a Blazer uniform. I don't know. I just don't want Trae Young on my favorite team, man.
It's super weird, but I also kind of respect not necessarily the trade itself, but just that's the kind of move. Like if you're just trying to make the playoffs, like I don't know.
Yeah.
It seems like I'm not.
You got all these defensive pieces around him.
Corona move or something, but
yeah,
like that does seem like putting your chips into the playoff basket type move, and I think that's I don't think it was like a horrible move by his to go after Trae Young.
I just thought it was funny. Like, man, the Blazers really can't choose one of Anthony Simons or Scoot Henderson. They trade both of them.
Yeah,
so
just get rid of both.
Yeah, it'd be hilarious. And also kind of frustrating for me if that happened this offseason. Like, at some point, they're going to choose one or the other, right? Who knows when that happens? But shout out to Medina, member for 15 months. Left a member message, says, drop a like. Yes, please drop a like on the stream. We greatly appreciate it. Easiest way to support the stream. Also, I'll do the chat poll. Shout out to Medina. Any other thoughts on the mock-off season, Eric, that you want to talk to chat about?
Well, this isn't necessarily just about the mock-off season, but I do find that the new CBA is making it very difficult for teams to just do what they normally do and trade, 90% of their roster. A lot of teams can't even really make a trade right now. They're so hamstrung with being in an apron or hard cap situation or whatever. So it does kind of limit how many moves you can make and make you have to be more creative or more patient, I guess, or, shop around for the best deal. And I think a lot of GMs are struggling to think of ways to be creative or to make moves. And so it's going to lead to a lot less overall trades than we normally would have, by a lot.
Yeah. I also think on the flip side, you could see some teams make some surprising trades where they dump salary or shed salary. And I think the two teams to look at in that regard, definitely Boston. And we can segue that into the Eastern Conference playoffs. We'll preview this series, Knicks Pacers. The Celtics lose in 6. They have Jason Tatum presumably out for the season next year. Okay. And they are far over the second apron, which starts to really penalize you the more years you're above it. You start to get draft picks frozen and weird things happen. I'm still kind of brushing up on the full scope of the penalties for if you're above the second apron multiple years in a row. Just because we haven't seen it yet is something that was put in place in the new CBA, but has yet to actually fully take effect on a team, just because there hasn't been enough time for a team to severely violate that. And maybe there won't be a team that will get their draft picks frozen or deal with being above the second apron multiple years in a row, because you got the Celtics. If they were healthy, if they won a championship or got to the finals, they were maybe going to be the team that tests it. But now with Jason Tatum out, presumably for the entirety of next season, new ownership in place, Porzingis or Drew Holiday is one of those two is probably getting traded. I would be shocked if one of those two is not traded. Now, the tough thing for Boston is going to be taking back no salary so they can save that much money in a trade. And it's going to take some maneuvering, and it's going to be incredibly difficult. They might have to trade both, because ultimately you're probably going to have to take some salary back if you're Boston. So, for some teams that maybe want to make moves that really can't because of their positioning, you then have a team like Boston where under the old CBA, maybe they just run back the same core, no problems next season. But under this new collective bargaining agreement, they're going to have to shed some salary, because the penalties are worse than it was in the old CBA. So Porzingis, Drew Holiday, I don't expect other names to get moved. They don't really have another big salary player other than Jaylen Brown, and I forget how much Derek White's making, but I would fully expect him to stay. And then the other team potentially would be Denver as well, who just got eliminated to the OKC Thunder. They are in a better financial picture. I think it's more so them maybe wanting to shake things up, maybe wanting to trade Michael Porter Jr., who we're going to talk about a little bit later. But their season came to an end, and they might be more active on the trade market than we've seen them be in years. So it's going to be an interesting offseason where you have some teams that are normally pretty stagnant potentially making trades, and some teams that would like to make trades that normally make trades that are completely stagnant.
Yeah, the Nuggets just cleaned house right before the playoffs started, so you don't know what the directive will be with their new GM. As for the Celtics, they have a new owner, right? They just sold.
Correct.
I think recently. So, yes. It'll be interesting to watch if that new owner comes in demanding to cut payroll a little bit, or if they're all in on just paying whatever it takes to keep the roster around. Like you mentioned, though, going another full season, Porzingis had some question marks in the playoffs this year. Drew Holiday has always been kind of a somewhat injury-prone player, and he's getting up there in age as well. So, you might want to just cut bait on those guys and realize that this is kind of a wasted season. Or do they think they have a chance and maybe Tatum could come back if they make the playoffs or something at the end of the season and just say screw it and go for it again? But it'll really kill their depth if they do that. So I don't know. They're going to have to make a lot of smart moves.
Yeah, definitely. I think the East is wide open next year, man. You look at the Cavs, they might make a move after losing in 5 games in the second round. They got torched by the Pacers. Great regular season, but once again can't make it to the conference finals, just like last year. You got the Celtics with the Tatum injury. You got the Bucks with the Dame injury, potentially trading Giannis as well. They might be bad next season. And you look at things, it's like you got the Knicks, you got the Pacers, the Cavs will probably hang around there. I mean, who's the 4th seed next year? Detroit? Orlando? I mean, Miami's there sitting there in 8. Could they get better this offseason? They probably want to, but they're not in the easiest position. Of course, they're going to be a full season without Jimmy Butler, and they really struggled down the stretch. Like Atlanta with a fully healthy Jalen Johnson, maybe they take a step. Or maybe it's, a younger team. Who would next year's version of the Detroit Pistons be, you think, in the East? Because I think the East is wide open enough that you could see a team legitimately take a step like that, because it's going to be easier than ever, probably. So who do you think that team would be?
Well, I mean, this kind of, I don't know if they're considered one of those teams, but the Magic really had a bad year. They had some injury issues with Franz and Paulo in the middle of the season, but that was a team who was basically the Knicks the season before that,
Mm-hmm.
or not the Knicks, the Pistons the season before that jumped up into there, and then they kind of didn't match expectations this year, barely made the play and stuff like that. So um, I could see them with some smart moves jumping back up into that top group. I don't think the Pistons are going anywhere either. But if in terms of teams that didn't make the playoffs, yeah, Wizards would be really crazy depending on who they get in the draft.
Yeah, I think they're just missing their star because that's the thing is Detroit took that step because Cade Cunningham took that step amongst other things, but that was the main catalyst.
Yeah, so they'd have to have one of their young guys step up, or possibly, hit a home run on the pick this year, just knock it out of the park. But yeah, people are saying Raptors in chat.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, that's interesting, but I don't know. They just seem to fall flat the last couple of years. Haven't really gotten it together. Ujiri seems like he's kind of stuck in the mud a little bit lately. Like, doesn't really know how to rekindle what he built in 2019. And so, yeah, you have to see if he can do that. The Hawks are mentioned by King Sam. I mean,
they've been there though. Like maybe not this iteration, but like Trae Young's been there.
Yeah, and of course, if Jalen Johnson's healthy, but I mean, they're potentially. I mean, they're down to a Kongwu at center now. If Capella leaves in free agency, I don't know how deep they're going to be. I don't know if they're really going to be that good to be.
I think they can find a backup. I think they can find a backup center. Yeah. I mean, they're picking at 13. I don't know if that's the best range to draft a backup center. Because Queen's probably going to be off the board, and that feels maybe a little too early for Reno or, Sorber. Maybe that's the pick there. I don't like that. But go ahead.
They traded Hunter and Bogdanovich this trade deadline.
Yeah,
and so I just think their depth is a little worse off now. Like we said, they could replenish some of that with some good moves, but I'll wait to see. And that wouldn't necessarily be just because, like, a team rising. That would be because they changed their roster a little bit. So, yeah, I don't know. The Raptors, it's weird because they had a horrible season and then fall all the way to 9th.
Yeah.
In the lotto, they got screwed almost worse than anyone else, falling 4 spots as well. So, or 3 spots. Yeah, 3 spots. I think they fell. But yeah, it's just. I mean, yeah, Sixers could get it back, but that's just because they're healthy. It's not necessarily because they.
Yeah.
Did something to change the roster, so.
I think the only team that could be next year's Detroit in the East is Toronto. I mean, they have talent. They have Brandon Ingram, RJ Barrett, Jakob Pearl, Scotty Barnes, of course. It starts with him. Emmanuel Quickley at point. You have Jacoby Walter, who had some moments this year. You have Grady Dick there, who had a really good start to his season, kind of trailed off. We'll see if he can be a little bit more consistent in year 3. They have Chris Boucher off the bench, who's been solid for a number of years. He's going to be a free agent this offseason. We'll see if they can retain him. But, yeah, that's a talented roster. I don't really know how the pieces fit together. Like, I don't really like the combination of Barrett, Ingram, and Scotty Barnes. It just feels like it's 3 players that want the ball in their hands all the time and aren't, Scotty can play defense, but Ingram, kind of a okay-ish defender. RJ Barrett's not a particularly good defender. Emmanuel Quickley's not a good defender in that backcourt. So they got some talent. I just don't know if the pieces fit, but that would be the team. But I do think the top 6 next year at this point would be Cleveland, New York, Indiana, Detroit, Orlando, and Philadelphia in no particular order. and then maybe sub in Boston for one of those teams. I think Boston will probably be like top 7 with those 6 teams. So I do think Philadelphia will get back. I think they might trade the 3rd pick, maybe 3rd pick and Paul George for KD. And then at that point, you're maybe talking about them being good enough to finally make the conference finals if Embiid is healthy and back to somewhat himself in a wide open East. Like, things are actually shaping up decently for the Sixers next season after what was a terrible season this year. But we got
trade Paul George, you get to a conference finals, right?
Yeah, something like that. If you trade Paul George to LA, they'll get AJ DeBonsa next year. Doesn't matter what LA team, just find an LA. Clippers probably don't want him back, so can you trade him to the Lakers somehow? Even if you have to give up assets with him, you might as well do it because then you're guaranteed a number 1 pick. They might not even be in the lottery next year. They'd still find a way to get a number 1 pick, right? Because the NBA rigs it. I'm kidding. Pacers Knicks. Game 1, Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific. Okay. Who's your pick in this series, Eric? And in how many games?
I'll say Knicks in 7. I think it's going to be a really good series, though.
I'm taking Pacers in 7.
Yeah. That's why I took the Knicks. I knew you were taking the Pacers.
I'm taking the Pacers. I was the only one around these parts that believed in the Pacers before the playoffs. I had them taking the Cavs to 7 games. I should have just kept rolling with them. I'm like, they're going to be surprisingly competitive against the Cavs, man. Like, they're going to be the Cavs' toughest test. They ended the Cavs easily.
You almost took them.
Should have took them, man. Should have took them. But
that, I guess, counts.
You know what? It's funny because, like, after the first couple games, like, oh, look, they're just beating an injured team again. Look how injured the Cavs are. Well, the Cavs got healthy again. Pacers still beat them. Pacers destroyed them in Game 5. A healthy Cavs team in Cleveland. Pacers destroyed them. So, they've gotten some luck in the injury department, but that's a damn good team. And that's a team that I think it would be kind of cool to see them in the NBA Finals. I know there's a lot of Blazer fans that hate the Pacers because of the antics with the Bucks and the antics with Dame, and I get it. I like that team, though, man. I like Halliburton. I've always liked Halliburton. I like Nembhard. That's my guy. And that offense would be a ton of fun to watch in the finals. That offense is fun to watch. So I want to see Pacers. I want to see Timberwolves in the finals. I don't think the Timberwolves will make it. But we can hop over to the West. You're taking OKC here, right?
Yeah.
How many games?
I mean, I hope 7, but I'm going to say 6.
Yeah, I'm going to take OKC in 6 as well, winning on the road in Minnesota. Yeah, which would set up a Thunder Pacers. OKC and Indiana. The NBA would love that, right? NBA would love. Listen, like, I know some fans are like, oh, we couldn't have a Minnesota-Indiana finals. It's like, just say you're not a fan of basketball then, number 1. Number 2, this is the problem with the NBA is, like, you look at the NFL and they pump up all their markets. Like, Green Bay is a storied franchise. They're the smallest market in professional sports in America. But it's Green Bay. Like, there's something special about it that's respected. Small markets are not respected when it comes to the NBA or the NBA's coverage. And it almost feels like, the NBA has a hand in that. And that's a mistake that they've made because you're going to have OKC dominating for a long time. You're probably going to have San Antonio right up there in the top of the West. And then, of course, you're going to have Portland up there in the top of the West. And then on the Eastern side of things, yeah, you got the Knicks. The NBA is probably rooting for the Knicks, but it's like the Pacers, Timberwolves, a finals like that would be fun basketball to watch, man. High-level basketball to watch. Both teams have been playing great second half of the season through the playoffs. And there's just a lot of fans out there who's, oh, no, these teams are boring. They're small markets. We want to see the Lakers every year. We want to see the Warriors every year. We want to see the Knicks or the Celtics. And it's just a problem with the NBA. The NBA has to figure out a way to like, raise the... I don't even know what they could necessarily do, but it's just like you look at the NFL and look how every franchise is pretty respected. And I just wish the NBA, it was the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Thunder are a fun team to watch. Timberwolves are a fun team to watch. Pacers get up and down the court really fast. Like they're a fun team. Knicks are more of a grind it out team, but that they can be fun as well. So I think it's four exciting teams. I don't really care what market they're from.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. What's going to be the key for the Timberwolves to try and upset the Thunder?
Well, I think Anthony Edwards has to go off, and they got to get some help from some of the role players, whether that's Jaden McDaniels or Mike Conley or someone like that. They need someone else to step up as well.
Yeah. The physicality of OKC defensively is just at another level. And, Anthony Edwards is a pretty strong ball handler. He maybe doesn't have like the best handle, but he's a strong player. Like he's not going to get bothered too much by physicality. I just wonder if the lack of like point guard play, high level point guard play, is going to be what the problem is for the Timberwolves against a defense like this. Because Mike Conley, it's Mike Conley, but he's up there in age. It's not like they haven't been playing Rob Dillingham. He wouldn't be able to handle this. He's like the last dude in the playoffs to be able to handle this right now as a rookie, being a small guard. So it's going to be a lot of Anthony Edwards kind of running the show. And you look at the way the Thunder were able to take Jokic out of the series for some games. Jokic has some games where he really, really struggled. It's going to be really tough. Anthony Edwards is going to have to find a way to carry that team. Jaden McDaniels is going to have to step up and have some big offensive games. I don't really like the matchup for the Timberwolves. I might go Thunder in 5, honestly. I don't think this is going to be as much of a series as Thunder versus Nuggets.
I actually feel the opposite. Why I think this series is going to be fun is because, Luka was able to beat the Thunder last year. Jokic, I know they get blown out in Game 7, but despite I'm seeing people, did the Thunder figure out how to stop Jokic and stuff like that? No, but the Thunder still almost lost this series, and they had a couple of incredible fourth quarter comebacks to win a couple of those games. Otherwise, they might not even made it to a game 7.
The Nuggets had one of those as well in Game 1. I think the one thing Luka had though is he also had Kyrie by his side. And I think like Anthony Edwards doesn't have another perimeter ball handler creator by his side.
Randall's playing pretty good. Perimeter ball handler type. But you talked about the physicality. Randall does seem to like physicality. Gobert can be physical too. So I think they have a couple of guys in the front court that can match some of that physicality. So that's why I think it'll be closer than just OKC overpowering them.
Yeah, I think it just comes back to the lack of a point guard for them, and Anthony Edwards being really the only perimeter guard that I'd trust to do anything against this defense. The Thunder, we've seen it all season, go on these insane runs where they just force a bunch of turnovers, and I could see that being a problem for Minnesota and just games getting out of hand because of that. And you saw it with, Denver. Jamal Murray had some games where he really struggled. And he's always kind of been inconsistent and lives off tough shots and whatnot. But, they were able to, when they got things rolling against the Nuggets, they turned them over. I feel like they're going to have a little bit easier of a time turning over the Timberwolves. We'll just have to wait and see how it plays out in the series. But I think that's the key for Minnesota is just find a way to take care of the ball and generate good shots against this vaunted defense.
Yeah, I think Anthony Edwards, he obviously can have bad shooting games. He's had several in the playoffs so far, but he also can get his shot against any type of defense, and is also seems to enjoy like when the defenses ramp up and the pressure gets tighter in these moments.
Was he complaining about double teams earlier in the year? you remember that?
during the season,
Yeah.
like Minnesota at
He's going to see a lot of double teams against this team.
Yeah, Minnesota at certain points, even though they finished right in the mix, I mean, they were fairly disappointing coming off of last year's playoff run. You'd think they would be entrenched into that top four, have home court advantage up until this series. So yeah, they were disappointing this year, but I don't know. When the playoffs come on, it seems like he just has that extra gear. And like I said, it doesn't mean he can't have bad games because he's had those, but it doesn't seem like the moment's ever too big for him in these games. That's why I wouldn't put it past the Timberwolves winning the series.
Yeah. I'm rooting for the Timberwolves. I'd like to see the Timberwolves win. I don't it would be insane if Anthony Edwards could put this team on his back and beat the Thunder in this series, because that's what he's going to have to do. That's what he's going to have to do. And the thing is Jokic, even when he struggled, he makes his teammates better than any player in the league. So, Anthony Edwards is great, but he's not a Jokic in terms of making his teammates better. He makes some nice plays, makes some nice passes, but that's, Jokic is the best player in the world for that reason. That's why he's able to help the Nuggets take that series 7 games, even though he has some games where he struggled to score the ball. It's just going to be about who can step up next to Anthony Edwards, because I can see Anthony Edwards having big games if he shoots really well and the Timberwolves still losing. That's the thing, is you're going to have Nickeil Alexander-Walker step up. You're going to have Jaden McDaniels step up. Julius Randle, he's kind of slayed his playoff demons so far this year in the first 2 series. Before that, I believe he had played 2 playoff series and he was awful in both of them for the Knicks. This year he's been much better, but I don't know, man. Like, is this the type of series that causes him to struggle? I'm not sure how he's going to respond to this. He could play really well against a small ball OKC lineup, or the quickness and some of these smaller players being able to be physical with him and match his physicality might be something that leads him to struggle. Those are just some of the things to watch in this Western Conference Final, some of the storylines. Game 1 tips off tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm happy to have basketball back. It kind of sucked today not having any basketball. And Sunday, it didn't even feel like we had basketball. And Saturday, do we even have a game Saturday? Am I forgetting something? Was that Knicks? I don't even think we had a game Saturday. Yeah, so it's almost been like we have 3 days without basketball, because I turned off that OKC game at the start of the second half when it was obvious that it wasn't even going to be close.
Yeah, I fell asleep during the second half. So.
Do you think the NBA needs to space out the games in the playoffs like Aaron Gordon suggests?
No, I think the first round's already spaced out. Although it did seem like it wasn't quite as long this year, but I don't know. I think a day off in between games is plenty. It's not like they're playing back-to-backs or whatever. I don't think that's the reason for these injuries and stuff like that.
The thing is, if you did that, it would take the finals maybe into July.
Yeah.
At that point, the season's too long. It's already longer than the MLB and NFL.
So you can't have it both ways. Like, the players fought in the last CBA to have less back-to-backs and things like that. Yeah. But when you spread out the season, then you can't. And like I said, it's not back-to-backs in the playoffs. So I don't understand why having a full day off in between games is, like, difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't really think that's the problem. I mean, maybe you could say it's the reason Aaron Gordon got hurt. Props to him for playing in that Game 7. That was insane.
Yes.
Yes, yeah, wow. And then you had Steph Curry get his hamstring injury as well after the Rockets and Warriors went 7. I didn't update that on this graphic. First round is broken. But, yeah, he plays 7 games and comes back and gets hurt in Game 1 of the next series. Maybe they could try and space it out a little bit more. It's just like, at what point do you have an off season left? Because if the finals goes into like near the start of July, then you're having the draft of free agency like mid-July, and then summer league late July into start of August. I mean, honestly, as a fan, I wouldn't mind that, because then it's basically just basketball year round. You know what I mean? You have a a 1.5 month hiatus. But I'm sure the players, if they did that, would then be complaining about how they don't have enough offseason, right? So it's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. There's no perfect way for these guys to set it up. Anyway, we've been talking about the Nuggets. Eric, I think I found. Well, actually, I'll table that talk. All right, let's start with Giannis. So, the Bucks are meeting with Giannis this week. The Blazers are rumored to be a potential facilitator in a Giannis Antetokounmpo trade because the Blazers own control of the Bucks' first-round picks in 2028, 2029, and 2030. Of course, if you don't know, the Blazers have swap rights in 2028 and 2030, meaning they get the best out of the Bucks and Blazers pick, and Milwaukee gets the worst. Now that is if the Blazers have a 2028 first, because they owe a lottery-protected first to the Chicago Bulls, meaning that every year their pick is in the lottery, the Blazers keep it, but then owe the following year's pick to the Bulls, and that runs through 2028. So if the Blazers owe Chicago a 2028 first-round pick and then finally make the playoffs and aren't in the lottery and that pick goes to Chicago, they can't swap it for Milwaukee. So hopefully the Blazers don't let it come to that point. That would be rough. But basically, the Blazers control 3 years of the Bucks' future. And there's kind of two different ways the Blazers could factor in. They could factor in as a facilitator where maybe Giannis is going to a third team, and that third team is trading a piece Portland's way that Portland likes that otherwise they wouldn't be in the running to get. And then the Blazers trade some picks back Milwaukee's way in a 3-team deal. And the other potential trade is just if the Blazers decide to say, screw it, let's trade for Giannis straight up. I'm going to show you guys a trade that was on a Utility Sports live stream. Shout out to you if you watch Utility Sports. But they were doing like a huge mock draft with some trades in it. And they actually suggested this trade. And Eric, obviously, I'm going to want your thoughts on this trade. Chat, I'm going to want your thoughts on this trade. But this was the trade. I did not throw in the second-round picks, by the way. There was like 4 seconds going the Bucks' ways. But basically, the Bucks get Ayton, Olynyk, Thibault, Henderson, Ryan Rupert, and they get 2 picks from the Pelicans. The Pelicans have swap rights with Milwaukee in 2026 and 2027, according to Fanspo. I thought New Orleans outright had one of those picks, Eric.
Yeah, they do. So I don't know.
Yeah. So that makes this trade less likely from the Pelicans. But I'll just read through this whole thing. So Bucks get Ayton, Olynyk, Thibault, Henderson, Rupert, get their picks back from New Orleans in 2026, 2027. They get their picks back from the Blazers 2028 through 2030. I think 2030 would just be swap rights sent back to the Bucks, where the Blazers would keep their pick, and that way they can trade their 2031 first-round pick. This 2029 first is the best of Portland, Milwaukee, and Boston, so could be potentially really good. They also get a young player in Scoot Henderson, and then a bunch of expiring contracts. The Blazers get Giannis and take on Kyle Kuzma, and the Pelicans trade a Milwaukee pick outright back to Milwaukee, and then trade swap rights back to Milwaukee, as well as Kelly Olynyk for Robert Williams III and the 11th pick. Eric, which team would be most likely to say no in this package? And what do you think of it in general?
Most likely to say no is probably New Orleans.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, they do get the 11th pick in Robert Williams, but I don't know. I don't know if that's that much different than just keeping Olynyk and the Bucks picks or whatever. Like, so I could see them saying no. I also, like, obviously it comes down to what the Bucks value. If they value getting their own picks back and then an extra first from us,
and
this
Scoot,
is about as good as they can do. And Scoot, yeah. When I saw this trade, though, Tori, there was 2 things that jumped out at me. One, why the heck are we trading for Kyle Kuzma? Is that just like extra value?
It's just salary. It's just salary. Yeah, it's extra value for them. Getting off that money.
Why do we have to give them so much salary why are they getting so much salary if we
To
have
get off
to?
Kuzma's contract
All
next
right,
offseason. Extra value
yeah.
for him, yeah.
And then at the same time, I know the contract sucks, so he wouldn't. The Bucks probably wouldn't want him. But we do not trade Jeremy Grant in this trade. So, Tori, what that means is the Portland Trailblazers would still have Tamani Kamara and Denny Avdia at the forwards. Okay. They're adding Giannis, who I guess would be your center. I'm like, you'd have to play center.
Yeah.
And then they'd have Kyle Kuzma and Jeremy Grant still on the roster. Like, that's 5 forwards, including Kuzma and Grant. That's like, are we trading for Giannis to try and tank with Kyle Kuzma and Jeremy Grant being the new Carmelo and Enes Kanter off the bench? Like what the heck are we doing? Like, it's so weird, man.
Masai Ujiri would be jealous of that. But
are we not
you don't play Kuzma
play Sharp at all?
You don't play one of Kuzma or Grant. I mean, their starting lineup would be Simons, Sharp, Giannis, Denny, and Kamara probably. Giannis at the 5, I guess. So let me reorder it. Point guard to center would be Simons, Sharp, Kamara, Avdia, Giannis. And you switch 3 through 5. And I think like Kamara can protect the rim a little bit. Avdia is a pretty smart defender all around. Like, it's not the worst 3 forward lineup. And then off the bench, I mean, you find a veteran guard. You find a veteran guard in free agency, and then you have Grant. And I don't know. I guess you would maybe have minutes for Kuzma, and then Klingon at the backup 5. Like,
I mean, this is disgusting. But could you maybe trade like Kuzma or Grant for like Terry Rozier or something? Like, I don't know. I'm just trying to think of a way to like get out of the contracts without giving up an asset.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. Like, and then maybe Terry Rozier's your backup point guard.
Not that I want Rozier.
If he bounces back at all, like he could play 12 minutes a game. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to play him, but yeah, you just figure it out. But I mean, I would rather really just try and like take Kuzma out. We will also flip you Jeremy Grant, and we will take back Damian Lillard. Look, Eric, we're back to my pipe dream. You remember? Yeah. You remember this conversation like a month ago? We're back. We're back to it. Like, I would rather do this, and maybe the Bucks would rather do this because they save. I don't know. Like the Kuzma thing, I think is better salary wise for them, I guess. But I mean, if they're going to be taking and rebuilding, is it really a bad thing that they're going to be paying Jeremy Grant? Like, I don't know.
Before Gregory Dundon in chat throws up.
I mean, the thing is, Dame's not going to play next year. Like, but
I know. I don't see them. Well, I guess different ownership, but
yeah, it's just like, really would they rather just trade us Kuzma, or would they rather take back Grant and trade us Dame? Probably just rather trade us Kuzma, but you know, like I don't know. Mm-hmm. That would be the options basically. Is these 2 iterations of the trade. But you would definitely try and flip Kuzma somewhere. Don't really know how you'd make it work. But like, here's the thing: if you're getting Giannis for this, Eric, like you'd have to say yes if you're the Blazers, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
You worry about other things later. Yeah.
You have a championship window the next 5-6 years. You still have Sharp. You still have Kamara. You still have Avdia. You have a top 3 player in the world.
It sucks including Scoot, but I do like that they pick a player, and I do think if we're trading for Giannis in this case, Anthony is a little better right now to win with Giannis. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm hesitant to trade Scoot, but I think if this was like a take it or leave it deal, I think if you're the Blazers, you take it, and I think you're you're probably contenders if you make like one good
Yeah.
move with Kuzma or Grant to get uh a solid backup guard or something.
You know what's funny is we talk about like, yeah, in the future the Blazers are going to have to try and find a way to beat OKC and San Antonio. This trade would be like, you know what? Let's actually beat them to the punch and like try and get in while OKC's still beatable and get
Yeah.
in before San Antonio, you know? But like that's the thing, if you're going to be aggressive and go for something that actually gives you a chance to contend right away. Don't go for a Sabonis who is never going to be the number one player on a contender, and then you're kind of stuck with a bunch of number twos and number threes long term where you don't have that guy. So yeah, like the Blazers, I think would have to take this. Or Andrew Bohm in chat says, why would Milwaukee do that? Because they get control of their next 5 drafts that they currently don't have control of. If they trade for Alperen Şengün and get some picks from Houston, like yeah, maybe those picks are good, but if they're not, they're just sitting there with Şengün. They're one of the worst teams in the league, and they're not drafting at the top of the draft, and they basically can't rebuild. They basically cannot rebuild unless they are insanely lucky or insanely smart, maybe both, right? Whereas this gives you the leeway, like, all right, we're going to let the bottom fall out. We're going to be bad. We got our pick this year. We're going to draft at the top of the draft. All right, we're going to do it again. We're going to draft at the top of the draft. If those players aren't panning out, the rebuild takes a little bit longer. We got the rights to 2028, 2029. Great. Like in the 2029 pick, if Milwaukee ends up good by then, if Boston or Portland somehow sucks, that could be a pick at the top of the draft when they're a playoff team, right? So it gives them a runway and a path to rebuild. And you also get Scoot Henderson, who, could still end up being an all-star point guard. Like, he's still 21 years old, still has a ton of upside. And they also shed, Giannis, they shed Kuzma. Maybe they could try and find a way to get off Dame's contract for it expiring. They'd have a lot of flexibility. This gives them a lot of flexibility going forward. They're going to be bad enough where they're probably going to draft, top 5, top 6 next year at worst. So they're going to be able to, and if they draft 6, then they're probably going to be at the top of the next year's draft and maybe the next year's draft. They're going to be able to find a star. Like, it's just being patient to get that star instead of saying, we need Şengün.
Yeah, it didn't really work out for the Nets this year, but the theory, like the reasoning behind it, I think was sound, and that was them getting all their assets back in the McHale trade, and then subsequent trade with Houston to make it not matter how bad they are. Because if the Bucks traded Giannis to like the Spurs or the Rockets, and they don't find a way to move pieces around to get any of their picks back, they're in a world of hurt if they're bad.
Yeah.
Because they're going to lose their pick, and they suck. They don't have any future or anything like that. Yeah. So I think they have to find a way to do something like this. And so once again, this isn't our trade idea. This is brought on Utility Sports, which is not a Blazer.
Not Blazer fans. Yeah, completely unbiased. Yeah.
So in my mind, this isn't necessarily a pipe dream. If the meeting goes in a way where they decide, both Giannis and the Bucks, that moving on from him is what's best for the organization. Now, I'm sure Giannis will want to go somewhere, and who knows if they'll help facilitate him going to where he wants to go because he won him a championship or whatever. Maybe that ends up overriding getting their picks back, and they look dumb, according to a lot of people. But I don't know, man. I definitely could see a scenario like this. Maybe not. Maybe New Orleans needs something more to do this trade, but I could definitely see the Bucks being interested in just basically hitting the reset with all your own picks back, and it's like all those trades never happened, and you can start over from scratch with decent player in Scoot Henderson to maybe turn into a star, given the keys to, and I think you just hit the ground running. You're probably going to be bad for at least a couple of years, and I don't have any problem with that. The draft next year, you could get, if you're up near the top in that draft, and you get one of those guys. I don't know if you saw Darren Peterson's working out with
He's
Phil Beckner.
He's like
already.
6'6" Dame, apparently, is
Yeah.
like a comparison I've heard.
Yeah, and
He's nice.
you know, we know Devonsa and Boozer are going to be really good. So, they could, you get one of those guys, pair him with Scoot, and make a couple good moves, and you're right back, maybe having another window of a championship. So, I think if the Bucks are smart, they'll probably value that over. And this is much different than the Kings, but look at like a team like the Kings last year who trade Fox and value getting someone like Zach LaVine back, go nowhere, don't make the playoffs, and now we're stuck in this situation where they are far from contention, and they're not like a terrible like 15th or 14th seed in the West either. So they're going to be kind of stuck in that range unless they move on from those guys. And then if you move on from some of those guys like Levine and Sabonis and stuff, you're probably not getting huge value back in trades either. So you're kind of limiting your ceiling by trying to stay relevant. And I just think it would be a bad move for the Bucks. Now maybe, if they can talk the Spurs into giving up Castle and the number 2 pick, and you have your backcourt of the future there with Harper and Castle, and maybe they see that as more valuable than getting all their picks back, you can certainly make the argument that is, especially if you feel like Harper's going to be a star. And you might be bad enough next year to still get one of those top picks to add to those guys.
How would Milwaukee do it unless New Orleans was involved?
They wouldn't have their picks.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Is like, okay, is it Harper and Castle? It's Harper and Castle versus like Scoot, potentially, Darren Peterson or Cam Boozer or AJ DeBonsa, right? So like, let's say it's Scoot, DeBonsa, and a top pick from the following draft. Which core is better? I don't know. There's a good chances the second. And then they have their own picks down the line. They have a good 2029 first. Like, that's the thing, is if they made that type of trade for Harper and Castle, it would kind of be going all in on, like, yeah, these guys better be our top 2 players because we don't control our draft picks for the next 5 or 6 years, and we have no other way of getting top players, so these guys absolutely have to pan out. Whereas you have more leeway with controlling your own draft picks, and you have more of a runway to build that core and find that guy. You have more opportunities. And, Scoot is no slouch as a prospect, too. You could definitely make the case that this trade is even better than that San Antonio one for Milwaukee, depending on what you're looking for. So, I think the Blazers have a chance. I think the toughest part about this, Eric, would actually be convincing New Orleans to give up those Bucks picks.
Yeah.
That would be the toughest thing. Now, you have the 11th pick. Okay, maybe they want to be competitive right now, right? Like, that's kind of been something like they just want to put butts in seats and be competitive. Well, so maybe they're looking at next year like they want to be back to the playoffs.
They did fire their GM and haven't new.
But whenever I hear stuff like that, it's always to me like ownership wants that, It always feels like there's ownership behind that. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But like, that's the tough part, because it doesn't work without the Pelicans giving up those picks back. So you have to give the Pelicans something to incentivize them to give those picks back. Is Robert Williams III and the 11th pick enough? Probably not.
Or if you flip the Blazers 2031 unprotected to them instead, maybe that's more important for the Bucks just to get all their picks back than it is getting that pick. I don't know.
I still don't think. I think you'd have to flip the 2029 first. That's the best of 3 teams, and that has the Bucks involved in it, right? So I don't know how you make it happen if you're Portland. That's where, if you got back a first-round pick for Jeremy Grant when you potentially could have last offseason instead of having this anchor on your roster, that first-round pick could be very useful. Very useful in a trade like this. Very, very useful. But they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't. Now, I think the way you could structure the picks is like 2026 to Chicago is... I mean, that doesn't even work. Yeah, I don't... If you give the swap rights back in 2028 and 2030, then you can trade 2 first-round picks in 2029 and your pick in 2031. So...
Or they could just unprotect the pick with Chicago.
Yeah, and then you'd be able to trade 2028. But, like, you want to give them their future back. So let's say you Here, let me go back to this page. Let's say you owe 2026 to Chicago. You unprotected, whatever. Figure something out there. Like, maybe you make it top 6 protected, and it turns into seconds. I don't know. And then... See, it still doesn't open up a future first, because then you're still trading back 2028, 1 in 2029, giving swap rights back in 2030, and then 2031.
Well, you could, I mean, you could do 2028, 2030, and 2029, because you still have the worst of the 3.
Yeah, either way, it's 3 first-round picks. Yeah, that's like the same thing though, because then you can't trade 2031.
You could do. Is this next league year salaries?
Yeah.
So we could trade 2032 then.
Yeah, you could trade 2032.
You just agree to it on the draft and let the Pelicans.
Yeah.
But maybe
there's swap
extra first, like the 20.
Yeah, and then first. Swap rights, whatever. Like, you just maximize your draft capital.
Yeah.
To the Pelicans. You know, maybe it's 11 plus swap rights in 2032.
Yeah.
You just try and find a way. I think the Blazers could be a player for Giannis if they want to be. Well, that doesn't mean that they'll get it done. That doesn't mean that they'll be a top 2 favorite, but I think they can have some legitimate conversations around a package like this that could actually have a chance of happening.
The question is, do they want to?
The question is, do they want to? The question is, with the sale affecting things, are they ready to make a big splash like that? I don't know. Does it help them sell the team if they have Giannis in tow? Do they get more money if they have Giannis in tow? Like, I don't know. Eric, I wanted to ask you this question. How does the sale affect what the Blazers could do this offseason from a trade standpoint? Do you think it'll lead them to being less aggressive on the trade market because they don't want to shake things up too much before a sale happens? Or do you think they'll be more aggressive on the trade market because they will want to turn this team into a winner starting next year, because maybe that bumps up the sale price just a little bit if the team's competitive and putting butts in seats, considering this sale is expected to take 9 to 12 months? Or is it just operating as usual and the status quo? How do you think this sale affects things?
Well, Troy, I don't know if you remember this, but they did win 10 out of 11 games and 36 games overall.
How could I forget?
They've already achieved the fact that they're good now. Okay,
yeah, true.
They're already good. You don't have to.
How dare I?
That going into next year. So yeah, we locked everyone in place. Cronin, Chauncey, they all got rewarded for that win streak, or whatever. So we're all good there. But in my opinion, it's going to be basically status quo like the last few years, and that's you can make whatever moves you want as long as it does not result in going over the tax. First of all, they're not going to go over the tax, and they're not going to add anyone that will possibly make them go deep into the tax in subsequent years either. And so that means, like, I don't know, someone on their last year of a rookie deal that's going to get like a max contract or something. Like, I'm trying to think of someone for it as an example, blanking on who's like the rookie class that is going into the summer. Well, I know Sharp is one of them. So who would that be? Chet, Jabari Smith, Paulo. They're not trading for any of those guys. But like, I'd be surprised if we traded for like an Ivy or a Jabari Smith or someone who has to get paid next summer. I mean, I guess you could say you could always cut bait with those guys. But I think that's more likely they go after more youngish type players. So we talked about this Giannis trade, both being a possibility for the Blazers, but more likely as a facilitator. So if they did get if Giannis got traded to Houston, for example, would the Blazers identify someone like Reed Shepherd as a cheap replacement for Anthony Simons and give up a first back to the Bucks to make that happen? Coming off the third pick in the draft.
Can I provide my opinion on that? I
would
hate that. Okay, because the Bucks picks for the Blazers have so much upside. They have potential star upside because they might be at the top of the draft. The Bucks might still suck if they don't get their picks back. So, like, that has more upside than Reed Shepherd to me, which is why I'd hate to lose that upside. Because if the Blazers don't make a splash for like a legit star, like a Giannis trade or something insane, they're going to need upside later on in case like Scoot or Sharp or Denny don't become top 20 players in the league, which is probably more likely than not that they don't. So you need those picks as in your back pocket down the line compared to like trading for somebody like Reed Shepherd, who's, I think he's going to be a good player, but I don't think he's going to be a star.
Yeah, so...
But that would be the type of trade that they might do, yeah.
So you look for other players. I mean, Sohan kind of fits in that same draft, so I'm just trying to think of someone on the Spurs. I don't know if they'd go after Castle the same way they would Reed Shepherd. Maybe, I don't know. He would fit into their like defensive style, I guess. Yeah, so that would be the thing, and then the next thing would be finding players like Denny that have outrageously good contracts for the next few years. So, or
there's not many Dennys out there,
yeah. The other thing is, do you get a player that's not necessarily a star, but you're able to dump Jeremy off as part of the salary going back to Milwaukee as kind of a condition of them getting one of our picks back? So, once again, probably have to be creative, but trying to think of like a player they could target that would fit with what they're building, but I don't know. I have a tough time coming up with a player that they could give up picks for.
Oh, Eric disappeared. Rip. Hold on. Gotta love collab cam, man.
My annual disappearance.
Your annual disappearance. You know who I was thinking of? Like, if Giannis goes to Brooklyn, Cam Johnson.
Yeah.
Like, the Blazers trade Jeremy Grant and, like, one of the Bucks picks back for Cam Johnson. I still would hate that because you're just giving up that upside for no reason. Just because you gave Jeremy Grant. Forward. Yeah, and for a backup forward. So it doesn't really make sense. It's hard to find somebody that would make sense in that regard. Because, like, if it's going to be a good enough player to make it worth giving up that upside, Milwaukee's going to want that player. Like if it's an Alperen Şengün, sure, yeah, like he's a star. I'll trade the 2028 or 2029 Milwaukee first back to them for him. But Milwaukee's going to want that player back. Like it's almost to the point where like if the Bucks didn't want Şengün and wanted their 2029 first back, then if you're Portland, you might as well just trade for Giannis if they want their picks back that badly.
Yeah.
You know, like at that point, you just insert yourself as that team. All right, you'd rather have your picks back than Şengün? Well, we're your top suitor for Giannis then. So it's not really plausible, I think, in that sort of way.
Is there a team that has picks that you would feel somewhat okay with having instead of the Bucks that would have similar value? If that makes sense.
Well, how many Suns picks do the Nets have?
It's Houston that has all of them.
Oh, it's Houston. Well, that also applies because Houston's the other.
Right.
There's like Nets and Rockets.
So yeah, just hypothetically, if Houston was like, "We'll give you all the Suns picks for all
the Bucks picks,"
and maybe it's like you get 4 Suns picks just for those 3.
Yeah,
I gotta look up exactly.
Yeah, I think you're cooking here, though. I think
is that the solution?
I think that is. Yeah, I think that's the solution. I just don't know how many Suns picks because like the Rockets have been moving around picks like crazy.
Houston has this year's Phoenix pick, which ended up being 10, right? So the 10th pick we could get.
2027.
They have 2027 first round pick unprotected. 2029. They have first round pick from Dallas and or Phoenix.
The two most favorable.
2 most favorable between Houston. Of Houston, Dallas, and Phoenix, they have the 2 most favorable in 2029. So you could get the most favorable between Dallas, Phoenix, and Houston, and then their pick would go to Brooklyn in that series. So they would have to keep the second one. So would you trade
the swaps and the
pick swaps?
2029,
for outright picks,
for those 3 picks outright, I would maybe do it for Phoenix 2027 and then just the best of the 2029.
Yeah.
Or, well, we wouldn't be giving Milwaukee their pick back, but you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking 2029 best like of 18? Dallas, Phoenix, Houston, Milwaukee, right. Boston, Portland. Could you imagine? Like, how are you not picking in the top 8 if you have the best of 6 teams? But, I mean, the whole point here is the Blazers are giving Milwaukee their picks back.
Is there a way to word it to where it's like the most favorable of those teams unless it's the Bucks and then it's the second most favorable or something? Like, I know that would suck, but like, I don't know how you would word that. But
most favorable of those 6 teams unless it's the Bucks. Then it's the second most favorable. No, that's doable.
Like, it's just like Milwaukee protected pick 1 or something. Like,
well, if it's basically Milwaukee wouldn't be part of the swap. Ooh. Yeah, what if we just so the 2029, the best of 2029 between Boston, Milwaukee, Portland, we remove Milwaukee from that, give it back to them, and then we get.
We can't remove it because it could be part of the Washington trade, right?
Yeah, true. And then that's how we get the stuff that's a headache on mock off-season sheets. But right. Like you can do some interesting stuff. It's a little too late for me to go down that mental rabbit hole, but yeah.
But also, so the only issue with this is, would Milwaukee value they're probably going to value getting the Pelicans picks back first.
Yeah.
Does Houston have a way to get all the Milwaukee's picks back?
Well, yeah, that's the problem. Is like, would these picks be going New Orleans' way? Right.
Yeah.
We have 3 years of control. They have 2.
Yeah.
We have 2029. That's the best of 3 teams that we would just outright trade Milwaukee, right? Like, whereas, if they don't get their pick because it's going to Washington because it's the second best, they get a pick that's better, right?
Yeah.
Basically, it's like, do you have something you could trade to New Orleans that would be palatable to them? Let's say, let's say 10 goes to the Pelicans and then like a Blazers 2031. Let me just clear this. Let me just clear this because I have a bunch of stuff like already included. All right, so let me just redo this.
So I don't think we're giving up another first to make this happen.
Well, it just depends on the picks. We'd have to take a look at like.
Would Houston have to do it?
Well, Houston, I was going to have them give Pelicans 10, right? And then
why doesn't Houston give them a 2031 first?
Yeah.
And then us 27 and 29.
See, I feel like New Orleans would just be at a place of leverage where they would compete with us over that 2027 Phoenix first, you know?
Yeah.
Which would be fascinating. But, like, basically, we don't even include any players. Or maybe that's part of the value is, like, we get off Jeremy, you know?
Yeah.
Like, so let's say we're sending Şengün to the Bucks. The Pelicans will just do picks, right? So it's like 2026, 2027, Milwaukee back to them. Portland, it's 2028.
I was going to say trade Grant for CJ. It's expired.
Yeah, that's funny. All right, so let's just send those back. So let's say it's like Houston's trading 10 to New Orleans. Houston's trading a 2031 to New Orleans. Is there like a young player New Orleans would want off of them that Milwaukee wouldn't? Yeah, I feel like Milwaukee would want him though.
Yeah. But if they're getting all their picks, I don't know.
Yeah.
Şengün and all their picks back, that's crazy value. You're getting an all-star and 5 picks.
It's just, what's the salary coming back Portland's way? Because Portland has to take back some salary for Grant.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's either Kuzma or Dame.
Well, can Houston give... Okay, it would have to come from Houston, right? Because they're not close to matching Giannis.
No, they're close with Şengün and Shepherd. They're 10 million under. Milwaukee's the team that's off here.
Would we have to take like Dylan Brooks or something?
Yeah, I don't know. Let's not overcomplicate it. Let's just do straight picks.
Yeah.
Let's just do straight picks. Let's say it's Jabari, Reed, Şengün. Okay. And then these picks are going to the Pelicans. All right. And then we get 2027 Phoenix. And then 2027 Brooklyn. The thing is like Milwaukee's going to want some of these picks, right? Like, let's say this 2027 Brooklyn swap is going to Milwaukee, and then we get, like, 2020.
They're getting, like, 5 first, right? I guess 2 of them are swaps, or 3 of them are swaps.
Yeah. And then they're getting, like, 2 outright picks back, and then, like, so, like, 3 first 3 swaps back. I don't know. And there's like their own first, as well as Şengün, Shepard, Smith. Like, I feel like that's definitely enough for Giannis.
Yeah.
So Portland, I mean, Portland just gets the best in 2029 and the Phoenix pick in 2027 for the best in 2029 between 3 other teams and then the 2 swaps. I would do that. I would do that. Would I do that? That's close.
And we don't even have to worry about our own pick not conveying in 2028.
Yeah.
Like, it wouldn't even be ours. So.
Yeah. Like, that's close. I feel like maybe you'd want a little bit more value. Like, Bucks take back Grant. And I don't know, like you get off Grant somehow. I don't really know what it'd look like, but this is like close to this makes sense. This makes sense.
Yeah.
The picks might move around where maybe we only get one of these, but instead we get like Brooklyn, the best of Brooklyn and Houston in 2027, which could be pretty good. Like maybe it's Phoenix in 2027 and the best of Brooklyn slash Houston in 2027. The thing is, the 2027 draft is not, it doesn't look that good right now. So I wouldn't want both picks to be in that year. I would want it to be like 2027, 2029. But this is what you're kind of looking at if you're the Blazers in terms of maybe swapping out the Bucks picks for picks that are a little bit better. And it'd be Houston. So yeah, super fascinating stuff. Stuff can get really complicated if the Blazers play a facilitatory role, but they could also be in play for Giannis if they really, really want to be. Doesn't mean they'll land him, but just be like one of the teams that has a chance in the sweepstakes. So yeah, I mean the Giannis saga is going to be something to watch all off season long. All off season long. Oh, I went to the MPJ screen share. Whoops. Okay, let's talk about MPJ. So, because I put this up a while ago.
Favorite player.
I feel like if the Blazers don't do anything like this, or maybe they do it in conjunction to something like this, okay. When the Nuggets lost and a podcast started talking about how, you know, the Nuggets are going to trade MPJ, I just feel like I had a moment of clarity, like, wow, there's the Jeremy Grant trade. You know? There's the Jeremy Grant trade where it's like Jeremy Grant's played there before. He's a better defender than Michael Porter Jr. They need a 3-and-D forward, right? Michael Porter Jr. is a bad contract, but only 2 years, where Jeremy Grant's 3 years. And, you know, maybe we trade Robert Williams there and take back, like, Zeke Naji and maybe get a pick out of it. And maybe there's, like, some light protections on this pick, but, like, I don't know, Eric. This would be the type of trade the Blazers would make to try and make... I don't even know if they could get that pick back. Let's just take out that pick. Let's say the Blazers made this type of trade. This is the type of trade I could see the Blazers doing to act like they got some value out of Jeremy Grant and Robert Williams. We get somebody that started on a championship winning team that addresses a need, which is shooting.
Whose shoulders messed up.
Whose shoulders messed up and he doesn't do anything else well. At all. And has been lucky to play off the greatest playmaking big in the history of basketball.
How many years does he have left on his contract?
Michael Porter Trash Can, 2 years. I'd have to retire that name if he ended up a Blazer, man. That'd be tragic.
One less year is the only plus side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Naji's contract's so bad. Oh my god.
I hate Naji's contract, man. Like, why do they pay him $8 million a year for 4 years? Like, maybe you get it. Maybe you get it. if we're not getting a pick back, basically we just say no, send us Saric and Deron Holmes.
Can they even combine salaries?
I mean, I think so. There's $6 million under the second apron.
So they just have to take back less than there.
So like this works. Like Michael Porter Jr., Dario Saric, Hunter Tyson for Jeremy Grant, Robert Williams. I think they would do this trade in a heartbeat. I think you could play Rob Will next to Jokic. I think that'd be a good defensive big for them to have. I think Jeremy Grant might be a better fit. I get this from the Blazers' standpoint in terms of shaving a year off that awful Grant contract. Sure, Michael Porter Jr. makes slightly more, but you're saving money in year 3. But I just never want to see Michael Porter Jr. on the Blazers, man. Like, this just feels like a trade that could be the trade for Jeremy Grant this offseason, doesn't it?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. They've like defenders.
They what?
The front office seemed to value defenders. I know he's a 40% career 3.
Yeah, but they are trying to get rid of Jeremy Grant, and this could be the. And you know that they're not going to want to get rid of Jeremy Grant and make it look like they're attaching value just to get rid of him, or that he's a negative value. So what do? You trade a negative contract for a negative contract, and you just act like both of them are positive contracts, right? Like we trade Jeremy Grant for a starter on a championship-winning team who's younger. Like it's just the perfect way for them to frame it. Now, if you could get back their 2031 first, like at that point, for as much as I hate Michael Porter Jr., like that's pretty decent for a Grant trade, I guess, just because of that first, and you're saving a year off his money. Like, would you do this trade as is, or would you need the first to do it, or would you not do either?
I mean, if we get there first, I might do it.
Let's say it's like top 8 protected and turns into nothing.
Yeah. That's fine as long as we have some sort of pick we can possibly get. But man, I'd almost rather just keep Grant. It's so disgusting.
Oh, yeah, it's disgusting. I mean, MPJ would come off the bench and would just be shooter off the bench. And I mean, they're kind of very similar. At least Michael Porter Jr. rebounds. At least he rebounds, Eric. They both average 2.2 assists. That's why I hate both of them. Yeah, I wanted to bring this up because this does feel like the type of trip. But like, think about it this way: if you got back that 2031 first, and then you're trying to make either of the trades happen, either for Giannis or as a facilitator for Giannis, where you get picks back, like that could be a good pick to put into play to get some higher upside draft capital in the next 3-4 years for the timeline of this roster, and you just deal with MPJ being on your team the next 2 years.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And maybe you have to take back Najee in order to make that pick happen. I don't know. But I do feel like the Nuggets would have a ton of interest in this. Jeremy had some.
Not
had
according
some
to their
moments.
owner, remember?
Well, yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, we don't have any. Well, or fortunately, we don't have anybody that plays college ball for Missouri.
Yeah.
But I truly think that could be a possibility this offseason for the Blazers is swinging a trade for MPJ. The Nuggets might trade him. I know there's a little bit of whispering about maybe they trade Jamal Murray. Or maybe that was the mock-off season. I don't know. Things are getting blurry now. But, like, at this point, it's how do you shake things up if you're the Nuggets? Things are kind of stale, right? Yeah, you almost beat the Thunder. And if they beat the Thunder, they would have a decent chance of winning the championship. But, you know, they get blown out in Game 7, so it's like, what can you do? There's no way they trade Jamal Murray in a way that makes sense because, like, they're not going to be able to trade him straight up for a better guard. You're kind of just going to have to hope that Jamal Murray turns into star-level Jamal Murray, you know, when you're in a playoffs. There's a reason he's never been a star, though. It's like he's inconsistent. He lives off tough shots. He's not the most athletic player. Against physical defense in that OKC series, he kind of struggled at times. He had some good moments as well, but he's kind of inconsistent in the playoffs. It's kind of CJ-esque, just at a little higher level. You can't trade him straight up for a better guard, and they don't really have assets to make that happen. So I don't think he goes anywhere. But Michael Porter Jr., swap him out for a guy like Jeremy Grant, who is 3-and-D and was their defensive stopper in the bubble, and get Robert Williams back too to be your backup center if he's healthy and take a chance on that. That's, I think, like the exact type of trade that they would look at. So. We'll see, man. I do not want Michael Porter Jr. on this team, though. I do not want it to happen. That's the next Kevin Knox. Is this just me calling Kevin Knox again? But just ahead of time? We're going to end up with Michael Porter trash can.
You're not calling this.
I'm calling it. I'm calling it. I'll call it if I need to. No, why would I call it? It's going to happen now.
No, there was a bunch of Blazer fans discussing this immediately after.
I didn't even see that. But of course they were. Of course the Blazer fans that don't watch this show would think Michael Porter Jr. is a phenomenal. No, I did not. I did not see any talks. I have not been online that much. But yeah, I could see a bunch of the cronies thinking Michael Porter Jr. would just be some amazing get for Jeremy Grant and then like justify the Jeremy Grant thing because they got Michael Porter Jr. Absolutely. You know that's how that'd go down, is they'd be acting like Michael Porter Jr. is the greatest thing ever and Cronin's a genius for re-signing Jeremy Grant and then trading him for Michael Porter Jr.
Snaggy loves Michael Porter Jr.
Of course he does. But just wait, man. Like, I see it now. And then it's, Tori, you're always negative. Why are you being so negative about this trade? And hopefully I'll remember this stream and can point him back to this very moment. No. MPJ is way better than Knox. Yeah, he's also paid like 100 times more than Knox. Honestly, outside of shooting the basketball, if you took that out of the equation, he's actually kind of comparable to Kevin Knox. Like, he does not play good defense. He does not make plays for others. His basketball IQ is not there. He's literally just a shooter on a max contract. He's not even the most consistent shooter. When he's not, the thing is, people will like roast Ant, like, oh, if he's not making shots, is he helpful at all? But like, he'll make plays for others and has gravity and this and that. If Michael Porter Jr. is not making shots, there's no benefit to your team, and he's making a max. Like, basically, it's like, yeah, man, we're paying Michael Porter Jr. and DeAndre Ayton a combined $73 million this year. Hopefully, DA makes his mid-range shots and Michael Porter Jr. makes his threes, because if not, both those guys are completely useless. $73 million, completely useless. So, yeah. Say no to MPJ. Anyway, appreciate you guys hanging out for the stream. We're going to be live again on Thursday. We'll have some other conversations for you guys. We'll talk a little bit about draft. We'll try and do that like once a week, talk about whose stock is rising. Next Thursday, we're going to talk about where Blazers are mocked. or who the Blazers are mocked to be taking in different mock drafts and that sort of stuff. And we'll talk some more trades. And I'm looking forward to it, man. The draft is barely more than a month away, which is crazy, but awesome as well. We'll have you covered every step of the way. Anything else, Eric?
Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Appreciate you all, and hope to see you guys on Thursday for that show. And then also we'll have Hoops Crush on Wednesday evening. Also.
Yep. Hoops Crush on Wednesday. Those guys will have you covered. And, hopefully you guys have a good rest of your Monday night, a good Tuesday. I'm going to go eat some lasagna now because I never had dinner.
Nice.
It's beautiful. Beautiful. And, we'll have the live stream when the Blazers trade for Giannis. So just be prepared. Or MPJ. It's one or the other. It's one or the other. Anyway, thank you guys for hanging out. Hit the like button on the way out here. Make sure you're subscribed. All that good stuff. We're out of here. Until next time, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.